So it's starting to get a bit cold outside, and what usually that means for a lot of people is you bundle up, you're looking to stay inside and maybe have yourself a nice, warm, and kind of cozy meal. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Cooking at Home. Today we're going to be making the delicious, the super easy, and the very fall-aparty, that's a word, beef short rib. And guys, beef short ribs are really just a simple braising meat that you can put in the oven for about 3 or 4 hours, and they come out super tender and delicious. Now underneath that, guys, we're gonna put a little bit of a puree of cauliflower. Now you could do potato, you could do, I think polenta or cornmeal. There's a lot of options, but we're going with cauliflower because we have some kicking around in the fridge. So guys, if you're enjoying any of the videos here at Time Out Kitchen, please feel free to hit the like, subscribe, or the little dinner bell thing so you can know when the next video hits the old YouTube universe. Now, before we get through our wonderful, delicious, meaty ingredients, we're gonna watch some delicious, meaty B-roll. So with that deep, beautiful, and delicious B-roll out of the way, it is time to jump into our ingredients. Now, of course, as you might imagine, we're going to start with the pièce de résistance, and that is going to be our beef short ribs. In this case, because we're feeding a small army, we're going to be using about 3 or 4 pounds of English cut short ribs. Now, I stress English cut, guys, because as you can see, we have the length of the bone is in there, and we get a lot of beautiful marbling as well. So go to your butcher, ask for an English cut, and don't be afraid to get a nice, thick piece of short rib. Now, as beautiful as this is, we don't want to sit here ogling this for too long because we got some more ingredients to run through. So let's gently put this down and move on to our next ingredient, which is going to be our onions. In this case, 2 medium-sized white onions. You'll also want to grab yourself a head of garlic. I'll be using all of this because I just like garlic and it's going to sit in the bottom of our roasting pan. To help round out some of those flavors, you're going to grab yourself about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Next, you want to grab yourself some carrots. In this case, I'm using about a pound or so of carrots. You can use more or less. They're just going to roast along with everything else. You also do not need to use heirloom carrots. Grab your ugliest carrot and that'll work just fine. You'll then want to grab yourself a head of cauliflower. Now you can use all of this or half. I used all because I want some extra. This is just going to be for our puree, guys. We're not actually going to put this with any of the other ingredients or in the braising liquid. This is going to be separate and make a lovely base for our delicious braised meat. Now it's not going to be much of a braise unless we add some liquid, so go ahead and grab yourself your favorite red wine or whatever you have kicking around like what I did. And guys, you're going to use about a half a bottle to 3/4 of a bottle depending on the size of your pot. For that, you're going to add the wonderful aromatic flavors of some bay leaves. Just 2 or 3 should do the trick. You'll also add 1 bouillon cube. This is going to be beef stock here, guys, with about 1 cup to 2 cups of water. So that covers pretty much all of our ingredients. The only thing I didn't really show here, guys, is going to be some salt, some pepper, and of course a little bit of butter just to help with our pureed cauliflower. So with all that being said, guys, let's get to the prep. So to start our prep, go ahead and grab your beef short ribs. You should have a beautiful cut here, guys. You can just see the color and the marbling, and you're going to go ahead and give this a good seasoning. And this is going to be a lot of kosher salt, and don't be afraid to cover every side, guys, because this is going to braise for a long time. But of course, since we're searing it first, it needs to get a nice crust on the outside. And to help with that crust, you're going to add some freshly cracked peppercorn, guys. Again, be generous here because we are going to be braising this for a long time, and so the sear is going to be where our initial flavor and color comes from. With your short rib thoroughly covered, you may want to just roll it around on the table just to pick up all those extra little bits of salt and pepper before we move on to the next, well, pieces of meat. Now just simply repeat the process we did with that very first piece of meat and generously season with salt and pepper on all sides. It's very important that you get all sides, guys, because that does help with our sear. With that done, you should have a wonderfully seasoned piece of short rib, guys. Should look something a little bit like this, and it's basically now ready to sear. So go ahead and put those off to the side because it's time to prep our carrots. So go ahead and peel these carrots because we're going to want to use them both for the actual braising, but also for a nice little fancy side on top of our beautiful dish of braised meat. And to make that fancy looking side, you're just going to quickly cut these carrots into long, thin slices, or right in half depending on the size of the carrot. In any case, you should have something that looks like this, and these are going to be roasted in the oven. For the carrots that are going to be braised, you just simply cut them into 1-inch pieces. You have something that looks a little bit like this. So similar to our carrots, we're going to cut our onion into 1-inch cubes as well. So just give this a cut in half, and then quickly slice this into 1-inch pieces. It should be fairly quick, guys, and a fairly rough chop should do the trick. With that done, move your onions to the side because it's time to cut our garlic. So grab your knife and gracefully cut through that garlic like so. As you can see, it's doing really well, so we're going to keep cutting. There we go. And then begin to pick out all of the wonderful cloves of garlic. Again, here you can give this a rough chop. There's no need to put this through a garlic press, so 1/2-inch pieces should do the trick. With all that done, guys, it is time to sear the meat. So in a cast iron pot, you're going to go ahead and put this on medium-high heat. Place approximately 2 tablespoons of a neutral oil into the pan before placing your short ribs down to sear. Now, I do recommend that you start with the fat side or meat side down because that other side is basically just bone and a little bit of cartilage. Now, you'll notice that not all of our meat is going to fit into the pot, but that's okay. We're going to cook this in batches. Now, let this sit for 3 or 4 minutes until it has a beautiful golden brown color, at which point it is time to give this a flip. Now, again, you want to sear every side, so you can flip this in any direction you want, but basically you want to get all sides seared and golden brown. When I mean golden brown, I mean like this golden brown. Beautiful, dark, caramelized color, guys. That is exactly what we're looking for. If you find some pieces are taking a little longer, that's okay. Just make sure you get some color on them, and you should have something that kind of looks a little bit like this. Now you might notice when you get onto your second batch that things are starting to look like they're burning. Now if you want to avoid any burning, just go ahead and add all of your vegetables, so that's your aromatics including your onions and your garlic, and then a little bit later you can add your carrots. With all that added, that'll let the meat continue to cook, but it'll help lower the temperature and release a little bit of liquid. Now you'll see we're still getting a wonderful color on here, but you might have to just make a little bit of room like so, just to get all that beautiful color back onto our short ribs. So with all your meat perfectly seared, it is time to remove the short ribs from the pot and give this vegetable medley a quick stir. Now you'll notice these are quite cooked down, and this is actually a perfect time to add your tomato paste. So go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, and then just give this another quick mix. Then you just want to let this cook off for about 30 or 40 seconds just to get some of that flavor and fond off of the bottom of the pot before introducing our wonderful bottle of wine. Now again, guys, I'm using a Cabernet Sauvignon. You can use really anything you like or whatever you have in the kitchen, but I do recommend a red wine. I just think it goes better and has a much deeper and rich color as well as flavor for this dish. So you're going to stir it once again and let this cook down by about a quarter. And while it's doing that, this is also a perfect time to add our bouillon cube. So grab your bouillon cube. This is again a beef stock. Throw that in before adding your cup or 2 cups of water, depending how much liquid you think you need. Remember, the goal here is to cover the meat about 3/4 of the way up. And finally, to our braising liquid, we're going to add 2 bay leaves. So just drop those in and let them do their thing. Because it's time to grab our seriously dark and delicious looking braised meat and put it back in the pot. So there's no science or technique here. You're basically going to be playing a form of meat Tetris, trying to fit all of your short ribs into the pot. But in any case, once you've solved that puzzle, you're going to want to go ahead and bring this back up to a boil before then placing this in a 325-degree oven for about 3 or 4 hours or until the meat is tender. Now, while our meat is braising away, it's time to prep our vegetables. So grab yourself a baking sheet and go ahead and place your already sliced carrots on top, cover with a little bit of an oil, season with some kosher salt and some freshly ground black pepper. And then optionally add a little bit of brown sugar. This will add a little bit more sweetness, color, and also a little bit more flavor. Then let your OCD take over and place these carrots into perfect rows like so. Wonderful. And then you're going to place this into the oven as well. Now these will roast very slowly, but that's okay, guys. We have lots of time. Up next is our cauliflower, which we're going to cut in half and then just remove the main stem. Now the objective is to cut this very thinly, so it doesn't really matter how you actually go about doing that. Just go ahead and cut this as thin as you can because we're going to be steaming this with a little bit of salt and some butter. and the thinner you cut it, the easier that will be. With that done, it's time to transfer our cauliflower into a pot, so go ahead and do that in a graceful manner such as this. We're cutting up about 1 to 2 tablespoons of butter. Now you can add this directly to the pot before adding about 1.5 cups of water. And that's it, that's all this cauliflower takes, so we're going to go ahead and move this to our stove and get it on to a boil. After about 5 minutes on the boil, your cauliflower should be nice and soft like this, which means it's time to grab ourselves a blender. And to that blender, we're quite naturally going to add all of our now softened cauliflower, without spilling a drop, of course. With most of the cauliflower in the blender, it's just simply time to give this a quick blitz. Now, if you're finding that it's still a bit too thick, guys, you can add more water or milk or cream depending what you like. With your cauliflower perfectly pureed, it is time to transfer it back into a pot and leave it on the side so we can keep it warm. And don't forget to give this a quick taste test because, guys, it's very smooth, it's very neutral in color, but has a good amount of flavor, and yeah, it's going to go really well for the base of our braised meat. Speaking of braised meat, and with the magic of editing, 3 or 4 hours have passed, so it's actually time to grab the meat and pull it out of the oven, and you're about to see something real nice, and that is some very well braised meat. Guys, just look how much the meat has shrunk on the bone, the depth of color, just how soft this meat is. You can see it falls apart with my finger. It's really hot, but yeah, the color is amazing. But we need to put this to the side because we actually have to get the meat out of the pot, so go ahead and grab yourself a plate and begin to transfer that tender meat onto the plate. And, well, sometimes you're going to have this problem where the meat falls right off the bone, so go ahead and dig that out. There we go. And yeah, continue to grab the rest of it, and you should have a plate of steamy, hot, delicious braised meat waiting for plating. But before we can dig into that delicious meat, we need to make ourselves a gravy. So in a cast iron pan, grab yourself a sieve and put in your braising liquid through the sieve, and then just give this a quick shake to get the rest of the liquid. I recommend saving the braised carrots, guys, because you can actually add these to the plate and they taste delicious. In any case, it is time to get our gravy going, so we're just going to move to the stove on a low to medium heat and let this begin to simmer away. Now, making this gravy is a bit of a time-consuming process. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes, but don't be impatient. If you let this keep cooking down, you will end up with something that looks a little bit like this. Deep, dark, and delicious, and we're going to be putting our braised beef back in there because we want to coat this with that delicious sauce. Use a spoon, use a brush, whatever you need to. Just be careful because these are still quite tender and they do fall apart easily. In any case, just make sure you do this for all of your beef short ribs, and you should have something that looks like this: deep, dark, and delicious. And it is now time to plate. So go ahead and grab your most appropriate of serving dishes and begin to assemble your dish, starting with your cauliflower puree. In this case, 1 or 2 ladles should do. Next, you'll add your wonderfully braised carrots, and then optionally, guys, you can add the following ingredients, which are going to include some lemon zest. This is really going to help cut through some of that fat and richness, and also some green onion or some fresh parsley or basil of your choosing. In any case, with just the cauliflower and carrots, you'd be fine, because then we're going to add our wonderful braised meat. I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. It's going to be amazing on top of this. And just for a little more color, we're going to want to go ahead and grab our now roasted carrots that look amazing. I'll just give that a spin so you can see what I'm doing, and then go ahead and finish off the plate with a little bit more lemon zest and, of course, some more green onion. And there you go, guys, our wonderful braised short rib with some cauliflower puree and some wonderfully roasted carrots and a few optional things as well. Of course, now it is time to dig in, and yeah, you're gonna want to make this because look how tender this meat is. Falls off the bone, guys. It's just, I could use a spoon. But you can see the depth of color, you can see the marbling and all that fat and richness. With a little bit of that sauce goes a long way, and yeah, it just, there's nothing to be said. This is just comfort food at its max. This is truly a dish that screams comfort food, and I really do hope that you guys try to make this at home because it is so good and so easy. Now, normally I would torture you with the sight of me eating all this delicious food, but trust me, guys, this is fall apart tender. It's super delicious, and you can literally make this for celebration, for a date night, or just to try something new. And speaking of new, guys, if you are enjoying any of the content on the channel and you're new to the channel, feel free to go check out some of the other videos we have. We have some really cool recipes, and I do hope you have a chance to check them out. With that being said, I'm done here, guys. I gotta finish the rest of this food, and as always, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.